Here's your lesson on area. By now you should have already gone through the activity where you find the area of a triangle based on some pieces of paper. So, first up, what is area? We've already talked about this before. It's the amount of space inside a flat surface. So, the perimeter is outside, the area is inside. Again, it has to be a 2D shape, not a 3D shape, and the units are squared. And what that means is that they have that little 2. So if it's centimeters, they have the little 2 up here. That means squared. Because with area, you can always break down the area of the shape into little squares. So if the units are centimeters squared, you can break it down into little squares that are 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter. So each of these, if this was a good drawing, each of these little squares would be 1 centimeter this way and 1 centimeter this way. So always make sure it has the 2 up at the top, and make sure it's at the top. It can't be written like this, because that just says centimeters 2, not the same thing. So if you're given an example like this, all you have to do is count the area. So you just count the squares. If it's already broken into squares, that's all you do. So the area of this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 units. Since we don't know what they are, I'm just going to write the word units squared. You can read this as 10 units squared or 10 square units. If you were given something like the grid, each one is 1 centimeter, then it would be 10 centimeters squared. Very simple. Just like perimeter, you count them up. Let's look at the next example where you're calculating the area of a rectangle. I'm pretty sure you all remember how to do this from elementary school. So I'm going to make sure that you do all the steps correctly and you show all your work. So everything that I'm writing down is what you need to write down when you're doing a question like this. So you start with the formula. Area equals length times width. You could also write it as LW like this. You don't need the times in there. When two variables are beside each other, we know that it's multiplying. But I'm going to leave it with the times symbol for now. Okay, so first you need the formula. Next, you put in the numbers into your formula. Excuse me. So the length of this is 30 centimeters, and the width is 10 centimeters. So area equals length times width. A equals 30 times 10. If you multiply that out, you get 300. And then our units here are centimeters and centimeters. So our units would be centimeters squared. And like I mentioned, if you broke this rectangle down into units that are 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter, you would have 10 going that way and 30 going this way, and you would literally have 300 square centimeters in that rectangle. So that's what you need to show. Formula, calculation, answer, units. Questions like this will always be out of 4 marks, so you need to make sure you show all of them if you want full marks. Now we're going to talk about the area of a triangle. So before we get into how to do that, I wanted to make a couple points about the base and the height. So what you should have discovered in the activity before this was that the area of a triangle is the area of a rectangle divided by 2, because there's 2 identical triangles in each rectangle. So to differentiate length and width in a rectangle, now we talk about base and height. And what that means is usually the base is the one on the bottom and the height is how tall it is, but it has to meet at a right angle like this. So in a triangle like this first one, this would be our base, this would be our height, because they meet at a right angle. So there's a little, you can put a little square in there. In a triangle like this, if this is our base, we don't have any sides that meet it at a right angle. So there would have to be an imaginary line down the middle like this that meets it at a right angle. And this would be the height, and this would be the base. Over here, base and height. If we have a triangle like this third one, if this is our base, again, there isn't a side that meets it at a right angle, so there's an imaginary line drawn from the highest point, just like this, from the tip of that triangle, down to where it would meet the base at a right angle, then that's our height, and this is our base. Now in these three triangles, I've purposely done them this size because all three of them have the exact same base and the same height. If you took a ruler and measured all three of these bases, they would be the same. All three heights would be the same, which means that these three triangles all have exactly the same area. If you cut them and put the pieces together just like you did already, you would get a rectangle. You get a rectangle that is the same size for all of them. This one would only have two pieces. This one you would have to cut something and rearrange it somehow differently, but you'd end up with exactly the same rectangle. Excuse me. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that even if these triangles are flipped around, they can still have a base and a height that isn't necessarily at the bottom and straight up from that. This triangle, this could be the base if you're given that the height is right here and meets it at a right angle. This would be the base, that would be the height. In this one, this could potentially be the base, and the height would be, in this case, out here a little bit to meet at a 90-degree angle. Okay, as long as they meet at a 90-degree angle, you have your base and your height. It doesn't matter where they are on the triangle. Even this first one, if this is your base, then your height could be right in here at a 90-degree angle. So, no matter what the picture looks like, always make sure you have a base and a height that meet at 90 degrees. That's all you need to know. Now let's look at an example. This one's fairly straightforward. We have a 90-degree angle right here. We have our base, we have our height, so we just have to calculate. Just like area of a rectangle, you need to show me 4 different things. First, you need the formula. So area equals base times height divided by 2. You could also write that as area equals base height over 2, or area equals base times height divided by 2, like that. Any way you write it is fine as long as you have the formula correct. I'm going to write it base times height over 2. Formula's done. Now we plug in our numbers. Our base is 14. Our height is 6. Divide both by 2. Once you put those into your calculator, you will get 14 times 6 divided by 2 will give you 42. Units here are meters, so the answer is in meters squared. So 4 things: formula, calculation, answer, and units. 4 marks, just like before. This is a slightly trickier example. This is where you're given something that's made up of some rectangles and you have to figure out the area. So to get the total area, you'll have to break this into 2 pieces. So I can either split it down here like this, so then I have this rectangle and this rectangle, or I could split it like this, so that I have this rectangle and this rectangle, because then I can find the area of each rectangle and add them together. So a question like this will be worth more than 4 marks. So what I'm going to do first is figure out the missing lengths that I might need to know. So if this is 15, this is 9, 15 take away 9 will give me this, which will be 6 millimeters. If this is 6 and this is 14, together they'll give me 20 millimeters at the bottom. So now I have all the missing sides. That should be millimeters. So I can calculate the perimeter, but I need the area. So I'm going to split it like this time. So I'm going to call this number 1, and I'm going to call this number 2. So what I need to do is figure out the area of number 1. So put a little 1 beside the A to mean area 1. And that's a rectangle, so it's length times width. The length of it is 9, and the width is 6. So I get 54 millimeters squared. Now area 2, the length is 20 and the width is 6. So area 2 equals length times width equals 20 times 6, which will give me 120 millimeters squared. So I have the area of this rectangle and I have the area of this rectangle. The area of the total shape will have to be combined together. I'm going to see if I can add another page here. Oh, it's not going to let me. Okay. So I had, don't erase what you're doing obviously, but in general you'd have a little more space. So the first one was 54, area 1, and area 2 is 120. So I have all my work there. I've shown my formula, my calculations, my answer, and my units for both parts. This is still area 1. This is still area 2. And now to get the total area, I'm going to add up area 1 plus area 2. I'm going to add up 54 plus 120. And I'm going to get 174 millimeters squared. So for full marks for a question like this, you need to show your calculation for this area, your calculation for this area, including the units, the answer, the formula, and then you'll have to show this entire calculation as well. And if there were any unknown sides like this that you used, you would have to show them as well. Now I just want to point out, if you split it this way instead, so then you have two different areas, you could still figure it out. Area 1 would be width is 6 and length is 15. Area 2, because we already calculated these, the width is 6 and the length is 14. If you multiply those out, you'll get the same total area as you did the first time when we split it the other way. Okay, last example. This is kind of like the first one. We have some units here. It says that our grid is centimeters. So that means that this is 1 centimeter, this is 1 centimeter, this is 1 centimeter, this is 1 centimeter, etc. So the area, you just have to think about this like those little boxes. How many square centimeters do I have? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 square centimeters. So my area is 17 centimeters squared. You could also look at this the same as the last question, where you split it into two rectangles. Well, the area of this one is 2 square centimeters, and the area of this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 3, which is 15 square centimeters, and again we get the total of 17 square centimeters. But if it's something like this, you don't have to show all your calculations unless you want to. All you have to do is add it up. With something like this, you definitely have to show all your calculations.